You have been taught, and you likely believe, that you are a separate individual, incomplete and forever searching for something outside of yourself to make you whole. I am here to tell you that this foundational belief, upon which you have built your entire life, is a profound and total illusion. There is a secret, a divine fact that has been buried beneath centuries of misunderstanding. It is not something you must achieve, but something you must come to realize is already and has always been the only reality of your being. In this time together, we shall uncover the nature of this divine completeness, and you will see why your entire search must come to an end, not in failure, but in the glorious discovery that you have never been apart from that which you seek. For your entire life, the world has reinforced a single, pervasive idea that you are here and God is there. This is the primal error, the foundational misconception that gives birth to all sense of lack, all striving, and all suffering. We pray to a distant deity. We seek fulfillment in external accomplishments. We beg for blessings from a power perceived as separate from our own being. This is the hypnosis, the collective dream from which we must awaken. The truth that shatters this illusion is not a complex theological doctrine. It is a simple, direct, and ultimate fact. There is no separation between your true identity and the infinite I am. The sense of a solitary, struggling self is a mirage, a wave believing it is apart from the ocean, momentarily forgetting its own watery substance. Consider the anxiety that arises when you face a challenge at work or in a relationship. The mind immediately goes into calculation mode. What must I do? How can I fix this? Where can I find the strength or the answer? This very reaction, this feeling of being a solitary actor on a vast stage, is the direct fruit of the belief in separation. You are operating from the assumption that you are alone in this, that the resources you need are outside of you, and that your success or failure hinges entirely on your limited personal abilities. This is the weight that so many carry, the burden of a self that was never meant to function in isolation. Now, let us look at a moment of pure, unexpected joy. Perhaps you are walking and are suddenly struck by the breathtaking beauty of a sunset. In that instant, what happens? The chattering mind, the worried I, falls silent. There is no longer you looking at a sunset. There is only the experience of beauty, a profound sense of peace and oneness. Where did your problems go? Where was the sense of lack? It vanished because, for a fleeting moment, the illusion of separation collapsed. You were not a separate entity observing beauty. You were one with the beauty itself. That feeling of wholeness, of sublime contentment, was not created by the sunset. The sunset merely provided the condition for you to forget your false, separate self and to rest, however briefly, in your true, unified nature. This is not a rare or mystical event reserved for saints. It happens to everyone. It occurs when an athlete is, in the zone, completely absorbed in the action, with no sense of a separate self performing. It happens when a musician is lost in the music, becoming the sound itself. It happens when a mother gazes at her child and the boundaries between two seem to dissolve into pure love. These are not merely pleasant experiences, they are glimpses of the truth. They are moments when the divine reality of your being, which is forever one with the source, shines through the cracks in your belief system. We mistakenly attribute the peace to the object, the sunset, the music, the child, when in reality, the peace is what we are when we are not obstructing it with the thought of a separate I. The spiritual path, then, is not a journey to a far-off destination. It is a progressive unfolding of the understanding that God is not a person, place, or thing, but the very substance of your awareness. It is the I that animates you, the life that beats your heart, the consciousness that perceives these very words. You cannot say, I am, without bearing witness to it. The I that you call yourself and the I am of God are not two. To believe they are is the only sin, the only source of pain. Your daily practice is not one of accumulation, but of relinquishment, a gentle, persistent letting go of the belief that you are a self-contained unit navigating a hostile or separate universe. You begin to see that every thought of fear, every feeling of lack, is a cry from this imagined, orphaned self. And you learn, through quiet listening, through inner stillness, to disregard that cry and to attend instead to the silent, ever-present hum of the one being that you are. This understanding completely reorients our entire approach to life, for if there is no separation, then the wholeness we seek cannot be something we acquire. It must be a state we recognize. The frantic search for fulfillment, which has defined our human experience, is built upon a fundamental misdiagnosis of our condition. We believe we are broken and need fixing, empty and need filling, sinful and need saving. We are like a man wearing a golden necklace, panicking because he feels he has lost it. Frantically searching the outside world, begging others for a trinket, all the while unaware that the treasure he seeks is already and always around his own neck. The feeling of lack is not evidence of an actual absence. It is merely the shadow cast by our belief in separation. Divine completeness is not a future promise to be earned. It is the present and eternal fact of your being, waiting only for your acknowledgement. Consider the common experience of seeking happiness. You believe that a new possession, a new relationship, or a new achievement will finally bring you the lasting peace you desire. And perhaps, for a fleeting moment, it does. But soon, the new car gathers dust, the relationship reveals its human imperfections, the achievement becomes a memory, and the old familiar sense of something missing returns. This cycle repeats itself endlessly because you are trying to solve an internal problem with an external solution. You are trying to fill a perceived void in your soul with objects and experiences that are, by their very nature, temporary and outside of you. The peace does not last because it was never inherent in the object. The moment of happiness you felt was not the thing itself. It was a moment when your desire was quieted, and in that temporary cessation of the search, your innate completeness shone through unobstructed. You mistook the lull in the storm for the calm of the sun, not realizing the sun was shining all along behind the clouds of your own seeking. This is the great secret. Your true self lacks nothing. It is the embodiment of infinity itself. Think of a wave upon the ocean. Does the wave need to go in search of water? Is it ever, for a single moment, apart from the ocean? Its very existence is the ocean expressing itself as a wave. It may have a temporary form, it may rise and fall, but its substance is, was, and always will be the entire ocean. You are that wave, and your divine source is the ocean. The wave does not become the ocean, it is the ocean, functioning as a wave. In the same way, you do not need to become God. You are the individual expression of the one divine life, functioning as you. Your sense of lack is the wave believing it is only a fragile, separate form, forgetting its own true, limitless nature. This realization transforms your relationship with prayer and meditation. So often, we approach prayer as a plea from a state of lack to a power that can fill it. We meditate to get peace or to achieve enlightenment. But if completeness is pre-existing, then the entire activity shifts from acquisition to attunement. Prayer becomes a listening, a conscious abiding in the awareness of what is. Meditation is not a method to become peaceful, but a practice of ceasing to deny the peace that is already your core. It is like tuning a radio. The symphony is already broadcasting, filling the airwaves. You are not creating the music by turning the dial. You are simply removing the static and adjusting the receiver to the frequency that is already present. The static is the noise of your personal thoughts, your worries, your beliefs in separation and incompleteness. The practice of the presence is the gentle, persistent adjustment of your awareness away from the static and into the silent, knowing reception of the divine symphony that is your own being. You are not trying to hear a distant music. You are learning to be quiet enough to hear the music that is already playing as you. This recognition of our inherent wholeness brings us to a critical and practical juncture on the path. If we are already the embodiment of divine completeness, then the entire structure of our seeking must be called into question. We have lived as spiritual beggars, holding out our hands to a universe we perceive as separate, pleading for scraps of health, wealth, and happiness. But what happens when you realize you are not a beggar, but the heir to an infinite kingdom? The act of begging becomes not only unnecessary, but utterly absurd. It is a profound misalignment with the truth of your being. The search itself, however noble it may seem, is now revealed as the very barrier that perpetuates the feeling of distance from what we desire. We are searching for God with the unspoken assumption that He is lost, all the while failing to see that the very consciousness with which we search is itself the presence of God. Consider the simple, universal experience of having misplaced your keys. There is a moment of panic, a frantic searching of pockets, tabletops, and bags. Your entire world contracts into the single problem of the lost keys. But then you find them. They were in your coat pocket all along. Notice the profound shift. The moment you remember where they are, the search ends instantly. It does not taper off. It ceases completely because its purpose has been fulfilled. Now apply this to your spiritual life. You have been searching for peace, for love, for your true identity. But what if these were never lost? What if, like the keys in your pocket, they have been with you as you all along? The frantic searching of spiritual practices, the reading of books, the attendance of lectures, all of it, while well intentioned, can be a form of looking in all the wrong places for something that is not actually missing. The search ends not when you find something new, but when you remember what has always been true. This is the great turning point, the Copernican revolution of consciousness. We are not here to fill a void, but to awaken from the dream that there is one. Every time you feel a sense of lack, a worry about the future, a regret about the past, a feeling of not being good enough, you are presented with a choice. The old way, the way of the personal self, is to engage with that lack, to try to fix it, to analyze it, to seek a person, a possession, or an achievement to fill the hole. This is the ceaseless activity of seeking. The new way, the way of realization, is to pause and to question the very foundation of the feeling. To ask, to whom is this sense of lack appearing? Is it appearing to the limited, separate all me, or is it appearing to the infinite I am, that I truly am? You do not fight the feeling. You look past it, beyond the form of the emotion, to the very consciousness that is aware of it. This is not a passive state. It is the most dynamic activity there is. It is the activity of yielding, of surrendering the role of the seeker. Think of it as coming home after a long, arduous journey. You have been traveling through foreign lands, seeking a treasure, only to discover the treasure was buried in the foundation of your own house. The journeying stops. You do not continue to pack your bags and buy tickets to distant places. You settle into the reality of being home. In the same way, the spiritual journey culminates in the cessation of outward seeking. You begin to live from the center, from the divine completeness you have recognized. Your actions are no longer driven by a desperate need to acquire what you believe you lack, but are instead a spontaneous and natural expression of the fullness that you are. You work not to become successful, but because the infinite creativity of the one demands expression through you. You love not to get love in return, but because love is the very substance of your being overflowing its banks. The motivation shifts from getting to giving, from becoming to being. The search ends where it began, in the quiet, undeniable knowing that I and the Father are one, and that all that the Father has is already mine. This brings us to the very heart of the misunderstanding that has plagued so much of our spiritual endeavor. We have been conditioned to believe that this is a path of achievement, a linear progression where we, as imperfect beings, strive and struggle to attain a state of perfection held by a distant God. We set goals for our enlightenment. We measure our progress by our peace of mind, and we chastise ourselves for our failures. This entire framework, while seemingly logical, is a product of the very sense of separation we are seeking to transcend. It is the wave striving to become the ocean. How can you achieve what you already are? How can you acquire a nature that is your soul substance? The entire concept of spiritual attainment is a contradiction in terms when viewed from the perspective of divine oneness. The shift is not one of achievement, but of realization, a profound and inner knowing that what we have sought externally is the very core of our internal being. Consider the difference between studying a map of a city and actually walking its streets. You can memorize every street name, every landmark, every turn. You can achieve a perfect intellectual understanding of the city's layout. But this is not the same as the realization of being in the city. The moment you step onto its pavement, smell its air, and feel its energy, the map becomes obsolete. The knowledge is no longer theoretical, it is embodied, lived, and immediate. You are not achieving the city. You are realizing your presence within it. In the same way, you can achieve a vast intellectual knowledge of spiritual truth. You can quote scriptures, understand metaphysical principles, and debate theology. But this is merely studying the map. The realization of your oneness with God is the moment you stop looking at the map and become breathtakingly aware that you are, and always have been, standing in the very city you sought. It is a knowing that bypasses the intellect and settles in the heart as an unshakable certainty. This is why the most profound spiritual shifts often feel like a remembering, not a learning. It is the shock of recognizing something that was true all along. Think of a man who has lived his whole life in a dimly lit room, believing the world to be a place of shadows. One day, a curtain is drawn back and sunlight floods in. He did not as achieve the sun. He did not build it or earn it through effort. The sun was always there, shining brilliantly. His only action was the removal of the obstruction that blocked his view of the ever-present reality. Your practice, then, is not one of building up, but of stripping away. It is not about adding more spiritual qualities to your personal self, but about removing the layers of belief in fear, in lack, in separation that obscure the brilliant, complete, and perfect light of your true self, which has never been dimmed. This understanding revolutionizes your approach to every challenge. When faced with a problem, the old self immediately asks, "What must I do to achieve a solution?" This question comes from the mindset of a separate entity needing to manipulate a separate world. But from the standpoint of realization, a different question arises. What is the truth of this situation, here and now, in the divine reality? You are not a problem solver trying to achieve peace. You are the very embodiment of peace, realizing itself even in the midst of the storm. The activity that follows is not the frantic struggle of a seeker, but the spontaneous, intelligent, and harmonious movement of the one life expressing itself through your form. It is the difference between a musician painstakingly trying to achieve the right notes, and a master musician who F is the music, through whom the melody flows without effort or separate intention. Your life ceases to be a project of self-improvement and becomes a continuous unfolding of divine self-revelation, where every moment is not a test to be passed, but an opportunity to realize ever more deeply the glorious and already present fact of your eternal completeness. The question then naturally arises, if I am to realize this oneness, to what exactly am I awakening? We have spoken of God, of the infinite, of divine completeness, but these can remain as abstract concepts, distant and impersonal. To make this real, we must look directly at the nature of this one being, not as a theological idea, but as the very fabric of our conscious experience. This is not a being in the sense of a person, but being itself. The fundamental is ness that underlies and constitutes all form. It is the one life, the one consciousness, the one substance, appearing as the infinite variety of the universe. You are not a creation of this being, you are a localization of it, a specific and unique point where the infinite I am consciously knows itself. There are not millions of separate consciousnesses. There is only consciousness functioning through millions of forms, just as the one ocean functions through countless waves. You can begin to perceive this not by looking for something new, but by looking deeply at what is already here. Take the simple act of seeing. You look at a tree. The common belief is that you, a separate entity, are looking out at a separate tree. But let us examine this more closely. The tree is made of elements from the earth and air, organized through the intelligence of life. Your physical body is made of the very same elements. The light reflecting from the tree travels as wavelengths, entering your eye and being translated into electrical impulses in your brain. But who or what is aware of these impulses? Is it the brain itself? The brain is merely another object appearing in awareness. This awareness that knows the tree, that knows the body, that knows the brain and its thoughts. This is the mystery. This aware presence is not a thing you possess. It is what you are. It is the one consciousness, the one being, simultaneously aware of itself as the tree, as the body, and as the knowing. The sense of separation is the belief that you are only the body looking out at a foreign world, when in truth, you are the one consciousness in which both the body and the entire world are appearing. This is why your deepest nature is peace, love, and intelligence itself. These are not attributes you acquire. They are the qualities of the one being. Consider a piece of gold. It can be fashioned into a ring, a coin, or a statue. The forms are different, but the substance is always gold. The ring does not have to strive to become golden. It is gold. In the same way, the forms of your life, your body, your relationships, your work are ever changing. But the substance of your being, the conscious awareness in which these forms appear, is the unchanging gold of divine life. When you feel a lack of peace, it is because you are identified with the turbulent form of a thought or emotion, forgetting the silent, peaceful substance you are. When you feel a lack of love, it is because you are focused on the form of a relationship problem, overlooking the loving, connecting presence that is the very ground of all relationship. The love you seek to receive from others is a faint echo of the love you are when you are not obstructing its flow. This understanding allows you to meet the world from an entirely new foundation. You no longer live as a fragile, isolated self navigating a universe of other separate objects. You live as the one consciousness, functioning as this particular individual. The fear that once gripped you was the fear of a wave for its own survival. But when you know yourself as the ocean, that fear dissolves, not because the wave form is permanent, but because you know your essential substance is indestructible. Your work in the world becomes an activity of the one. Your relationships become the one relating to itself in another form. Your challenges become the one exploring its own infinite potential. There is no longer a you and a God. There is only God being you, and through you being all that you behold. This is the final relinquishment of the personal sense, not into nothingness, but into the glorious, infinite fullness of the one being that you have always been. And so we arrive at the natural conclusion, the inevitable outcome of this entire unfoldment. It is not a theoretical concept to be believed, but a living reality to be embodied. This is the meaning of living from the finished kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is not a location you enter after death. It is the realized harmony of your present experience, when it is perceived not from the standpoint of a separate self, but from the consciousness of your oneness with the divine source. You are not trying to build this kingdom through your efforts. You are learning to recognize it as the already complete reality, and then to let your life be a spontaneous and natural expression of that recognition. The wave does not strive to become the ocean. It simply functions as a wave with the full knowing that its substance, its power, and its very existence are the ocean itself. This shifts your entire mode of operation from one of personal will to one of inspired discernment. Consider the difference between a gardener who plants a seed and one who tends a mature, fruit-bearing tree. The first is focused on achievement, on effort, on making something happen. He worries about the soil, the water, the sun, constantly intervening to ensure a future result. The second gardener also works, but his work is different. He prunes, he supports, he harvests the ripe fruit. His activity is not one of creating the tree, but of cooperating with its already unfolding life. He works from a place of present fulfillment, not future lack. When you know the kingdom is finished, you become the second gardener. Your life is not a project of building yourself into a spiritual success, but a practice of tending to the already present activity of the divine life as it expresses itself in, through, and as your individual experience. Your daily life becomes the very ground of this practice. You are no longer waiting for a special meditation cushion or a retreat to find peace. You are finding it now in the midst of the traffic jam, the demanding boss, the crying child. How? by recognizing that the peace you seek is not the absence of noise, but the nature of the consciousness that is aware of the noise. The noise appears and disappears within you, the unchanging, aware presence. You do not try to change the circumstance to match your idea of peace. You rest back into the peace that you are, and from that centered stillness, intelligent action arises on its own. This is not passive resignation. It is dynamic alignment. It is the difference between trying to push the river and learning to float with the current, trusting the intelligence of the flow to carry you. Your relationships are transformed in the same way. You cease relating to others as separate entities who exist to fulfill your needs or to threaten your security. You begin to see the one divine being appearing as your friend, your partner, even your adversary. The love you express is no longer a transaction, a giving in order to receive. It becomes an overflow of the love that you are, a natural radiation of your realized completeness. You love not because the other person deserves it, but because love is the fundamental nature of what you are, and to withhold it would be to deny your own self. Conflicts are no longer battles between separate selves, but opportunities for the one consciousness to harmonize its own expression, to see itself more clearly. This is the ultimate freedom, to live in the world without being of it, to engage fully in the activities of human life, working, creating, loving, learning, while knowing with an unshakable certainty that your true identity is the silent, unchanging screen upon which the entire movie of life is playing. The screen is untouched by the dramas, the comedies, or the tragedies. It is the necessary space that allows them all to be. You are that screen. The forms of your life, your body, your thoughts, your achievements, and your losses are all appearing on you. You can enjoy the movie fully, laugh and cry with it, but you are never fooled into believing you are a character trapped within it. You are the vast, open, welcoming space of conscious awareness, the finished kingdom itself, in which the entire divine play of existence unfolds effortlessly and perfectly.